Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I'm your host, Jebaroo, and I'm joined by Callum in the most unlikeliest duo you'd expect to see on the FMT podcast. Callum, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, thanks. We're great friends. It's all fake.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
all fake. There's no rivalry there at all. We love each other. Yes, it's just the two of us today. I'm really good, thank you. I'm really good. How are you, Jeb?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. So we're missing Rich this week. He's having a week off just to reset himself and come back stronger. And unfortunately, we're lacking Kev. Unfortunately, Kev's having issues with his disability, and it's we wish him the best. Get well soon. We want to see you. We love you lots. But I've got a replacement for Kev. I found one.
Have you got the perfect replacement for Kev though?
It's imperfect. Might be pushing it a little bit, but it is. It's another Kev.
It's
We've got
another
Lollujo. Hello, welcome in. How are we?
Very good, thank you.
Lovely stuff. You've had a lovely holiday down in Norfolk this week, and you've joined us just before going on another holiday.
I know. I mean, as I would say to HMRC as well, these are not holidays; these are work trips.
Yes, sorry, work trips.
And produce content for my other channel.
Yes, of course.
Holidays.
Yeah.
What's a holiday?
No, exactly. You're not Judith. Well, no, you are Judith Chalmers technically. There's a reference that probably only me and you will get in terms of age, but there we are. So fantastic if you're joining us. I think the easiest place to start is probably me coming all the way over from the Jebaroo stage, as you termed it. Your world record attempt and how successful that went.
Yeah, it was that was a strange couple of days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was. It was
absolute madness.
How are you feeling like after? So what were we 2-3 weeks out now?
Yeah.
How long was the recovery in general?
I mean, letting people behind the curtain a little bit. I was late for this podcast recording because I was still in bed. I woke up this morning to a DM saying, "Are you still all right for the podcast this morning?" And I'm like, "Whoa. It's like nearly 12. Is it even morning anymore? I've definitely missed that, haven't I?" So it's a weird one. Actual, like, feeling like my brain had recovered from it almost immediately. I mean, I was back in the expo hall at Insomnia. We finished the stream at like 1:30. I did a little media tour thing that I keep seeing stuff from that I don't remember doing. But then I went back, had a little bit of a nap, and I was back in there by 8 p.m., had a normal night's sleep, and kind of just got back into normal routine the next day and was fine. But the one thing that hasn't recovered still a couple of weeks on is my sleep routine, sleep schedule is just all over the place. Not helped by the fact that EAFC came out a couple of days ago, but I was up until like 3 a.m., which is utterly unheard of for me. I mean, I've always been there. I want to be in bed by 10 o'clock guy. But I was up playing that until like 3 a.m. and then slept in until like 10:30 this morning, which again, for young people, that probably feels like a completely normal Sunday. For me, that is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And yeah, I've kind of not slipped back into the up at 7 a.m, no problems, getting tired by 10 p.m. thing yet. So I may have permanently broken myself doing this, but I'm still functioning, so it's fine.
I mean, I popped into your stream. It was within the last sort of 12 hours, Kev, and I couldn't believe how coherent you were. I just thought you sort of might be sat back, sort of mumbling words, but you're just normal Kev. You're just normal Kev. And it was very impressive. And I think you sort of talked about how in your past you've sort of struggled a bit with sleep, and you've come around to this almost mindset of you are able to be coherent through it. And it's very impressive, but it seemed like adrenaline more than anything was sort of getting you through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a couple of cheats that helped me through. I mean, the fact that I'm a sleep apnea sufferer, so I lived like the first 39 years of my life stopping breathing for half of every minute of every night and waking up. I'm thinking I'd had 8 hours and effectively I'd had like 2 hours and just functioning, and that was completely normal. So it's only been the last 18 months or so that I've experienced what being rested is like and what having a full night's sleep is like. So it was relatively easy to just slip straight back into how I used to feel for a couple of days. So that helped. Plus just my sheer ridiculous brain determination thing. Once I decided, there was no way. Can you imagine the stick I would have gotten? There was no way I was going to make this much of a song and dance about trying to break a world record and then not do it. I said to the guys who were organizing it before we, the wonderful people from joe.co.uk, said to them in the setup, the only way, because they were like, do you think you can do it? And I said, well, if I don't do it, it's because you're bringing me out here on a stretcher. And they were like uncomfortable laughing of like, oh, if you start to feel like you're going that way, let us know. I wasn't going to let them go. I don't know. I was going to have a heart attack or a stroke or die at that table, or I was going to finish. There was no alternative.
Yeah, and you had some helpers along the way. Obviously, Nerdphonic coming in to do your entire setup. I mean, I was as surprised to see him as anybody else, but then also I wasn't, because I knew he'd set up your entire setup at the weekend. But it was a lovely surprise. But yeah, he set it up, and my word, he did a fantastic job on your microphone. Because I don't think it showed too much in your vlog, and we didn't get too much footage. I did find some footage of. Basically, at Insomnia, something that started last time was the army have a little stage and they do some esports on there. And then somebody, I think during the last Insomnia, got up in the evening and went, should we do some karaoke? Because we're here all night, so they did some karaoke. This has now turned into a thing. So as soon as the esports stage, where I was running, or the Jebberoo stage, which was referred to, that made all the noise, as soon as that finished, they started up this karaoke. And my word, none of them could sing. None of them could sing at any, especially on the first night. They didn't know what audio levels were. They just thought, oh, it's red. That's fine. And yeah, I think that kicking in, particularly on the Friday night, was a massive help to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was obviously no way for me to start dozing off and falling asleep while that absolute racket was going on. And that went on until like 3:30 a.m. So that was, and then at that point, I would then go and have my break. Each night I had a couple of hours break around 3:30. So the theory being trying to wake up from my nap at a normal-ish waking up time and just eliminate those really bad hours. Because I've done loads of 24-hour streams in the past, and I know from them that the only time it's really a struggle is right in the middle of the night when you're not normally awake. So the fact that there was this built-in thing that got me through the middle of the night when I'm not normally awake, because the room was buzzing. It was the busiest and the loudest that room ever got at any point ever throughout the whole weekend, those 2 middle of the night karaoke sessions. And I didn't realize quite how loud it was. I could feel the room buzzing, but I was wearing noise cancelling headphones. So it wasn't until I would like nip to the toilet or just pop the headphones off for a second that I would realize just how loud it was, and couldn't believe that people could still hear what I was saying on the stream. So yeah, Matt's fiddling with that was absolutely bonkers. There'd be people coming into the chat on Twitch going, oh, your microphone's doing some weird stuff there, Kev. What's going on with your microphone?
It's fighting.
Oh, well, yeah. Let me take these effects off of it, and then you'll hear what's actually going on here. Because the way Joe had built the setup, it just looked like I was in an office with a different background. They just set me up with all the gear, football shirts and stuff behind me. It just looked like I'd maybe changed my streaming room in my house, and that was it. So for anyone who didn't know what was going on and where I was doing it, it was like, okay, you just look like you're doing this in your house, but it sounds odd because you've got all these little audio artifacts that are being left in. And yeah, it was because, and every now and again I'd just take off the filters and you couldn't hear me when the filters were off. It was mad. We actually released this weekend. Editor Chris has been working his backside off for the 2 weeks since, and has put together a highlight video of the entire stream. He's taken that 50+ hours down to like a 25-minute video, and there's a clip in the middle of that where I think it's the middle of the first night that at one point I just take off the filters and sing along to, I think it was Champagne Supernova.
Yeah.
And there's just a minute in the middle of the video of me singing along. And yeah, I don't know I don't understand why we didn't get a copyright strike. It was so excellent.
Oh yeah, definitely. Exactly. Yeah, I think I found so there's a comedian called John Robertson. I found a clip of him doing Enter Sandman. I think that's the only clip that I could find of the karaoke being safe to use because it was actually all right. But yeah, it was bonkers the noise that was coming from there. Obviously, I popped over a fair few times. I think you mentioned the save there. You got some narrative out of that as well. I mean, that's an actual save, and you let me behind the curtain a little bit. That you did that FA Cup win was really quite well planned out, and considering you were on no sleep, it wasn't, let's say it wasn't staged, but it was quite nice that you were in the FA Cup final as you got that world record.
Oh yeah, I mean it was my I've been doing this a long time. I've like been doing YouTube for like 8-9 years, podcasting for as long as that before that. So I know as a teacher, I have the ability of, if someone tells me to talk for 45 minutes, I'm talking for 45 minutes. I'm not going a little bit over or a little bit under. I'm hitting my time cue. So from the second season finished, because we did 3 seasons on the save, the second season finished with about 15 hours to go. So I knew at that point I can't fully fit a third season in. We'll see about that. And I ramped the speed up to maximum, turned off highlights, stopped paying any. I was literally just spacebar, quick pick spacebar, and just getting through the matches as quickly as possible. And then as I got closer and closer to the end, starting to try and adjust. Right, okay, so I've got an hour left. I've got 6 matches. I do need to slow this down a little bit now. And I think we kicked off in the FA Cup final with about 5 minutes to go until we broke the record. And as the streamers and everything went off for the record breaking, we scored the equaliser in the FA Cup final and then got to string it out for, I think we broke the record by about 9 minutes in the end because we had to string it out for the penalty shootout and all of that stuff at the end. But yeah, there was no way I was going to end the stream with 5 games of the season to go and no like complete story. It had to be a complete story. I was gutted when we won the Champions League at the end of the second season. So I was like, well, that was supposed to be the end. What am I supposed to do now? I've ballsed this up massively. But we had like that perfect story over the first couple of years anyway, because I was managing Spurs. The rule was I had to sell Harry Kane in the first window because we had to play on a vanilla database, so we couldn't have any of the updated squad lists or anything like that. So we sold Harry Kane. Really difficult to get Harry Kane to leave Spurs, ironically. Had to really fall out with him, forced him out the door. Eventually had to accept £60 million from Paris Saint-Germain because we couldn't get any more out of anybody. So he went off to Paris Saint-Germain. At the end of the first season, we played Paris Saint-Germain in the Europa League final and he scored the winner to win himself a trophy at the expense of Spurs winning a trophy. It was glorious. I was happy with that. But then second season, we played them again in the Champions League final and got our revenge and beat Harry Kane's Paris Saint-Germain to finally lift a trophy in front of him while he sat there having a little cry. And I was like, if that had been the 50 hours, that is the perfect story. How on earth do I keep this interesting for the next 15 hours to like keep it going from a content point of view? And so we went out, signed Jude Bellingham and decided to try and win the league, but that didn't quite work out. But we did pick up the FA Cup. So yeah, we won 3 trophies, I think, over the 50 hours with Spurs, which, I mean, that's the achievement I think people should be talking about, not this world record thing. We won trophies with Spurs, which is bonkers.
I think it's amazing how much like sort of narrative that was formed within a really short space of time within, you know, the FM world, if you like. I appreciate it was hours and hours and hours for the world record. I love the fact you sort of said within content, you do have to sort of create these scenarios, don't you? Because the reality is this is a database, isn't it? And, you know, and it's spreadsheet manager and we do have to create our own little stories and pockets of this. And the fact that you played Paris Saint-Germain, not just once, but twice in major finals. I mean, that is just magic. And you can't create that. You can create the possibility of that, but you can't create that. And these narrative threads.
Obviously it is picking out the narrative as well. Because there could have been any number of scenarios, and we'd have to find a different story, but it's just finding the story from this big pile of data, and you just pick the story out of it. But it's, yeah, that to me is that's the secret sauce of making Football Manager content, finding the narrative, knowing what matches to come back in your YouTube video for, knowing when to focus in on your Twitch stream and when to just chat about something else, because you're just literally going through the motions, just getting from point A to point B so you can get to the next interesting story beat. And that's the knack to it. That's what separates someone who can do this from someone who doesn't understand why they're not getting anywhere, because they're doing everything everyone else is doing, but they're not. They might be technically doing everything else. They might have all the gear. They might be good at talking to camera. Their editing might be good, but ultimately, if the story isn't there, the content is just a little bit hollow, and nobody really cares. So, yeah, that's the knack to it. And luckily, nobody in the history of the world has made more Football Manager videos than me. So, if anyone was going to be able to pull that out of them without any sleep, it was going to be me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like even just the extra narrative that the FA Cup final was against Arsenal, just to make it just like a little extra spice to it as well. It's almost like it was rigged, but it wasn't. It was just the way the game fell. It was fantastic. So the world record was out of the way, but the current content that you're producing is your FC home save. So so they're in Benidorm. Is that
Yes.
is that? So it's a creator club thing. Like it's a very unique thing, and a few people have done it, but I don't think people have done it as well as you have. I think I can't. Yeah, like I said, I think FC Thames maybe from Benji.
Yeah, I was going to say that again when Ben's in it.
Yeah, exactly. FC.
We'll say the exact same thing to Ben.
Yeah, exactly. but it's like I said, talk us through that save and how that came about. How have they ended up in Benidorm?
I mean, yeah, there's a quick answer to that. It was a nice pun. You know, the club is called Home, and the reason, I mean, so this is the third iteration of Home, and it is basically just puns. I get to the end of the football season, the summer is starting, and I just want to play around with some puns, and then so every few years I bring Home out. So the original Home series was on, I want to say FM18, FM19, and it was because Nodney to Legend had been going a couple of years that year, my big save. And I always start that in the lowest playable league in the game. And one of the most common comments I was getting back then, not so much now, but back then I'd been getting people to tell me just start lower. Because I think it was around about the time that starting in like tier 8, tier 9 was the cool new thing that nobody had really done before, and we hadn't realized then how utterly broken and boring it was starting in tier 8 because the database doesn't work. So everyone wanted me to start lower. So I went and found the lowest altitude point in the UK, which is a village called Home, just outside of Peterborough. I was living in Peterborough at the time, so this village was like 20 minutes from my house, and it was the lowest point in the UK. So I was like, well, there you go. And it was called Home. And it was like, okay, not only have we got the lowest point in the UK, but the pun potential for a place called Home is amazing. So we did the first series. It was just basically that premise. I stuck them in tier 8 to please the people who were whinging, and started from the lowest point because it was a fun pun. 2 years later, we did Homegrown, which was just homegrown players at the club, and just did it all again, but this time didn't do any signings, just used our own homegrown players. And then it got round to this year, and we did Holiday Home because, you know, got to do Holiday Home, and the obvious place for an English club to be on holiday is Benidorm, because, you know, Benidorm, it's basically England in Spain. If this one hadn't bombed as much as it had, I've got Retirement Home, I've got Home and Away when we were going to go to Australia. I've got dozens of these ready, but unfortunately, with each iteration of the save, it's becoming less and less popular, and this one is very much going to be the last one. It's the worst performing series I've done in probably 3 or 4 years. And I think it's mainly because the biggest feedback I've got, even episode 1 hasn't had the level of views that an episode 1 would normally get for me. And always common feedback I've get is we've seen it before. It is still just Home. And I mean, I would argue you haven't seen me manage in the lower. If I'd have done Benidorm FC in Tier 5 in Spain, I think it would have got double the views. So as much as I enjoy playing around with the puns, and I certainly enjoy, and this is one of the reasons why I did create a club in the first place way back when, I enjoy owning the intellectual copyright of the stuff so I can sell shirts, and I do quite well out of selling the shirts. Selling the shirts, selling the merch is very pleasant. I like to be able to do that. But I actually think we're at a point now where this one has done so poorly, particularly on YouTube. It's done so poorly that just from a business point of view, I probably would have been better off doing Benidorm and not selling any shirts than doing home for a third time. And I certainly, as much as I want to do the puns, maybe I'll do them as one-off videos. That's the cool thing now. Maybe I'll do retirement home as a one-off 5-season video at some point in the future, and that'll perhaps get views then. But yeah,
you never know, Kev. If there was one last hurrah, if someone makes a space database, ET phone home, that would be a good one, wouldn't it?
It's almost certainly in the book already. I've got dozens of these. If there's a home pun, it's in there, because it's not even me necessarily thinking of them. People just mention them in streams. They all get written down. That's where Holiday Home came from. I mean, someone mentioned it like 3 years ago, and it was just always been in the back of my mind. I am going to do that at some point, and this felt like the year that I wanted to sell some shirts, so I did it again.
Yeah, I remember the first. Sorry, Deb. I remember the first iteration of Home, and was it Mick Powell? You had Sir Mick Powell, and he went all the way up the divisions for you.
He is a channel legend. We still refer to players who do what he did as doing a Mick Powell, because the thing about Mick Powell wasn't that it wasn't necessarily that he was really good. He didn't even come up all the divisions organically. He was great from Tier 8 to like the conference, and from them we just kept him because he was Mick Powell. He did eventually score in the Champions League for us. He was never a regular starter once we got into the Football League, but the thing about him is he was there right at the very start in the youth team, but didn't have 5-star potential, didn't notice him. But then towards the end of the first season, he did what is now known as a Mick Powell, because just suddenly from absolutely nowhere, and I still don't know why or how, just from nowhere, he went from being this nothing player that we hadn't even noticed to the best player at the club. Just like that. His star rating went from nothing to 4 out of 5 current ability for no reason. He didn't go out on loan. He wasn't playing. He just exploded and went straight into the team and started scoring goals. So now whenever anybody just appears from nowhere, we've got one in the current home save. Joseph Rabiou came through our youth team. He didn't get, because when my youth teams come out, I offer my channel members the opportunity to rename them, and he was such a nothing player when he came from the youth team, no one claimed him. So we've got lots of channel member names in the save where they've picked the highest potential youth players. He didn't even get a channel member name. We sent him out on loan for a couple of years, and then he was out on loan somewhere, and we got a notification through saying he was going to the Olympics to play for Nigeria. And I was like, you're doing what now? Brought him back, put him in the team. He was a winger when he went out on loan. He came back as a central midfielder, massive 6'4" physical central midfielder. He's now played like 300 games for the club. He's our club captain. He's still our best player, 3 divisions higher. And yeah, he is the most recent example of somebody doing a Mick Powell.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to like where ET Phone Home, it just ends up as a 5-season YouTube short, because you're just making it shorter and shorter, and you've just put it in there. It's a quick way through. Yeah,
this is why I've got beef with Tom and Luke and everyone else who's ruining YouTube for me. The fact that you're even suggesting that as a thing. Yeah, YouTube is going down the toilet.
Exactly. It's the attention span of current.
Yeah, keep all that nonsense to TikTok. Let me do my 300-part series and let people enjoy it, for goodness sake.
Fantastic. You mentioned actually your Joseph coming through and being your club captain and being amazing. This is something that kind of got released this week in the FM24 blogs, where they said players will develop later. They'll just kind of come out of nowhere in terms of that. And it kind of nice little segue over to the new FM24 stuff that's come out. You've obviously done your videos on it. Anything that particularly excites you about the features that have been released this week? So this is the week where we've had smart transfers, the transfer room, and the intermediaries been put out there.
I mean, I think the transfer system update is long overdue. We've had, years now of Fabrizio Romano being there on Twitter talking about players agreeing terms with their new club, and now they just need to agree a fee. And it's like, well, this is the opposite way to how it works in Football Manager. I don't understand it does, and of course we also have the thing of whenever I buy anyone installments, people telling me I'm cheating, and I'm screaming back at them, this is how they do it in real life. So the fact that they're bringing Football Manager transfers more in line with how real transfers work is great. I think it does rely on them getting the player interaction and agent interaction stuff right, and it needs to be better than it is at the moment, because it's one of the most frustrating things in the game at the moment, that it just is seemingly random. And because they're putting so much weight on that as part of this new system, if it's still seemingly random, I don't want there to be lots of random in my game. I don't want to be like, well, I kind of want to offer this player out, I have no concept how he's going to react, so I guess we roll the dice and see how he reacts. I don't want that. I'd like there to be some kind of indication of, am I about to explode my club dynamics by trying to offer a player out, or does he want to leave anyway? So we need a little bit more in terms of player interaction, I think. But yeah, it's all steps in the right direction. It's there were two things, I think, aside from the graphic stuff, which doesn't bother me, never has, probably never will. The two things I wanted to see fixed in Football Manager for a long time were the transfer system and set pieces, and they've announced them both. So I'm very excited for FM24. I think it's going to be awesome. Whether or not anyone will play it, because they've announced FM25 as well. So half the player base are like, oh, I'm just going to wait. Yeah. No, don't wait. Play this one. Watch content on this one. I'm excited for it.
I agree. I mean, we touched upon it in last week's pod, actually, about this is probably the first FM in whatever that people have got the option of going, well, actually, I might wait for the next one because I already know a bit about it. It's very rare where a game is released and they go, here's this new game, but this is the next one. What do you want to do? And it's quite an unusual way. I think it's good in some ways because they're being very transparent about it. They're being open about this year's game and the ones to come. But it's a little bit of a gamble on their side of things. I think this will be potentially the year that some people might wait and watch people like yourself and go, okay, how is Kev finding the game? He's enjoying it. Brilliant. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a go. This has got enough changes in it to purchase it, I suppose, because ultimately we shouldn't be obliged to spend 30-40 pounds every single year. Personally, I do, but some people might not be in that position, and if they don't see enough change, it's tricky, isn't it? But from what they have announced so far, I think there is a lot of change. I think there is going to be a lot of change, and I'm in the same camp as you. I'm genuinely really excited about this release. I think there's going to be a lot of under the hood changes. It might look similar with the user interface, but everyone, so many people use different skins and stuff like that to make it look different anyway. I do think the changes that they have made will be really significant to the way the game feels.
And I think what people need to consider as well, the I'm waiting for 25 brigade, I think there's a very good chance that 24 will be better than 25, and it'll be the first time in as long as I can remember where we'll get the new game and it will feel not polished. It will feel, because they're completely rebuilding it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to look better, but there's going to be a lot of stuff they're going to have to presume. And I mean, I have no information. I don't know. But I suspect there'll be parts of it that feel less polished, that don't work fully the way they intended, potentially areas of the game that don't work as well as they will on 24, because the big focus is going to be on getting it to look right, getting the graphics, getting the new engine working, getting women's football in there. That I think this is probably going to be the best, most polished version of Football Manager that we play potentially for the next 2 or 3 years, until 25 goes through a couple of cycles of those gradual updates. I mean, it's the same with any shiny new tech product. You don't buy it at launch. You get like the second or third iteration of it. So this is going to be the perfected version of what is effectively Football Manager 2, I guess. This is the perfected whereas and Football Manager 3 will be great. And I wish they used this naming convention like they used to on Championship Manager, because I think it would manage expectations much better. But I think this is going to be the perfect version of this version of the game, and it will take us a few years before we get this polished and perfect on the new one. I'm still excited for both, but I would be very wary of waiting for 25 because you're expecting to have your socks blown off, when actually it might feel in some areas almost like a step back from 23, 24. But that's just me trying to get people excited about 24. Because I like, against what Callum's just said, I think if people aren't playing, they're not watching. I think in order for there to be people watching the content, they also need to be playing the game. I would suggest the vast majority of Football Manager content is consumed whilst playing Football Manager. And if you're not playing it, you're not going to watch it, and you'll go and do something else for a year and you'll come back. And I'm sure they will come back. And I'm sure, regardless of how any of this actually pans out, the FM25 launch will be the biggest one we've ever done. It'll be everyone's going to be swimming in views. We're all going to be wearing jackets made out of money, and it's going to be amazing. But I want to get there. There's going to be people who fall off as content creators before 25, because I think 24 has the potential to be quite rough from a creator point of view.
Yeah, I think 24 might be one where it's late adopters as well. So I think it might not be people who buy it for the beta and go straight into the full game. I mean,
well, there's going to be less of that anyway, because there's more and more getting it on Game Pass, getting it on wherever else. We're moving further and further away from people buying the game. Every year they add in a new subscription service: Apple Arcade, Netflix, PlayStation Plus, the Xbox Game Pass. There's going to come a point where nobody's buying it anyway. You just get it every year as part of your subscription service, and it's only the real hardcore who buy it for the early access and to support their creators with their creator codes, because we need that money, because without that it's a disaster.
There we go, nice plug there. You can find your creator codes for Lollujo on his Twitter account.
I didn't say it myself.
I've said on his Twitter account, and I'm going to put it in the description or anything like that, because Callum's got one as well, apparently. So I think it's intriguing. Like I said, I think there'll be late adopters to it. I think it'll be people who might be consuming content first and then maybe buying it like towards, you'll get that itch in December or something along those lines. I think I always have issues with the beta, because you play a beta in any other game and then they'll take it away and they'll make improvements. The issues that I find with this one is that sometimes you just get to launch and it's the same game. They've just basically gone, it's live now.
Well, they don't even call it the beta anymore. They haven't called it that for years, have they? It's the early access. So it's just it's pre-order early access, and I think we're so conditioned to calling it the beta because that's what it was 10 years ago. But it's been a long time since SI referred to it as that. It is very much pre-order early access. It's not there for testing. It's not there for them to make changes before release. It is a thank you and a reward to people who pre-order the game. And, that's creators' fault as much as anybody, because we all refer to it as the beta. We'll all put the word beta in our videos and everything because people search for it. But it's not actually been called that for years.
So on that, what's your beta save?
I'm not completely decided yet. I always say it has to be a Big Six Premier League club.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not going to get views. But I'm also saying it's probably going to be Brighton, and people keep challenging me on it. They're not a Big Six Premier. They are, because you've got Manchester City, Arsenal, Manchester United, Newcastle, Chelsea, Brighton. That's six. Spurs are pointless. Everyone's happy.
I'm not happy. How dare you, as a Liverpool fan? How dare you, indeed?
They're so irrelevant. I forgot about them.
Wow. Right, okay, end the podcast. This is my podcast this week. We're done with it.
I might let you swap Liverpool in for Chelsea.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Chelsea could be a lot of fun, because you can just go to the squad and go, who are all these players? Because I'm still watching them now and going.
The problem with Chelsea is I did Chelsea last year, so I can't do them. See, the two most interesting ones from a top six perspective would be Chelsea and Spurs. But I did Chelsea last year. I managed Spurs in non-league to legend and in the World Cup save. Can't really do either of them. Can't really do Man United because they will sue me. So that can't do Man City or Arsenal because it's just a guaranteed win. So that leaves me with Newcastle, which I feel like a lot of people are going to do. Brighton, I think, is quite an interesting one. Doing a couple of seasons with Brighton, trying to do their transfer policy as they do it in real life, getting to enjoy Evan Ferguson for a couple of years. I think would be quite a fun save. But it's it's the first year in a long time when I've got to this stage of the cycle. I'm still not nailed down with who I'm going to do. I'm kind of hoping one of the big clubs sacks their manager. Like if Chelsea sack Poch like next week, then obviously I'm doing Chelsea again, because it just becomes the really, really easy decision. So I'm kind of hoping, and that he seems like the only one who's got any chance of going out of the big club. So it might still be Chelsea again yet.
Yeah,
just because they're a meme for the second year in a row.
I think there was a possibility of Eric Ten Hag going, but apparently Johnny Evans saved his career last night. Like somebody telling me that Johnny Evans was the world's best defender last night somehow. But there we are. So looking at all the stuff that was announced this week as well, I think we talked about transfer policies and these intermediaries and transfer room and things like that coming out. I think one of the hardest things I found about FM23 is offering players out to clubs, because they just don't go anywhere. Like you either really annoy them or you get a bid in, and it's the bidding that really upsets me on FM23. It's like you offer players out, you know they're worth about 7.5 million, and somebody comes in and offers you 3-4 million at most. Are you excited by the transfer room and the intermediaries? I mean, obviously paying percentages off to people isn't nice. It's like another sell-on fee, I guess. But how are you finding those new features that are coming out?
If it makes that system actually work properly, then great. Part of me feels like it is going to be mechanically very similar, just with a different name and a different user interface. I don't know how massively different under the hood it's actually going to be based on what we've seen so far. I hope it is, but I suspect we might still be in scenarios like I was in with Harry Kane in the world record one, where I can't get him to go. And just the idea, that kind of stuff really can break the realism of a save. If you take over as Spurs and can't get Harry Kane, can't get anyone to offer you more than 60 million for Harry Kane, and can't convince him to leave. And it's like, okay, both of those things seem mental. There should be. I've made it clear. He's on the transfer list. I want a shot of him. I've made it publicly clear that if that had happened in real life, there would have been dozens of clubs queuing up to throw money at Spurs to try and get him, and he'd have been ready to go, like he was. So yeah, if it fixes that and makes it a little bit more realistic, then super duper. But like I say, one of the things Football Manager is sometimes a little bit guilty of, and contrary to what people might say about me, I do call them out for this stuff when it happens. I feel like they do have a little bit of a habit sometimes of just shuffling the user interface around a little bit, taking a bunch of existing features and putting them in a new menu and calling it a feature. And I hope that's not what's happening with this, but I think it has the potential to just be offering to clubs but sponsored effectively, which I hope it's not.
I feel like Transfer Room might be a little bit like Deadline Day already. What they've got on Deadline Day, where you sort of get the offers, don't you, of all the players that suddenly want to join your club that day. And I think maybe it'll have similarity to that. And I do like Deadline Day, but I worry that maybe that will get old quite quickly if it's like that all the time. Because I think it's nice novelty at the moment. Sort of go, I can wait till Deadline Day because there might be this right winger who comes out of nowhere, or this centre back who comes out of nowhere who I didn't know before, but they're available and they're now willing to join. I don't know. As I say, I for me personally, it's a change. It's a refresh to it. Is it going to be like a massive? It might not be hugely different, but if there is that subtle tweak that here and there, I think that's what keeps you interested and keeps you invested in a game. So I personally, I'm really looking forward to the transfer side of things. I think it could, for content creators as well. Me and Jeb were talking about it before you came in, Kevin. We're sort of talking about this message that comes out where they say, you're 20 million in debt. You've got 1 week to sort this out or we're taking over. I love that. From a content point of view, that is going to be gold. You know, when you've got 7 days, what am I going to do? Who are we going to sell? No one will buy my players, you know, and I think that could be fantastic.
No, agreed. That does that. I mean, What kind of monster would get themselves overdrawn on the transfer budget in the first place, though? Eh? It's not happened to me consistently throughout FM23 at all. It was this year that I first discovered negative transfer budgets, and they are fun because you do have everything taken out of your hands. It's certainly on FM23 when it happens, you can no longer adjust the slider between wage budget and transfer budget. You can't manage anything with your scouting stuff. So yeah, it does tie your hands behind your back a little bit even now. But yeah, the idea of them putting a deadline, the fact that it's actually going to have some consequences, we might actually get the network game back because the others might not be in a moody anymore about me just spending all the money because I won't be able to without there being consequences. That was the thing that upset them the most when I was showing them all I was better than them. The fact that there were no consequences to my transfer policy that ultimately led to me winning the league.
Yeah, it is one of those, like, I think it's which way the board go when they make those threats as well. What are they going to sell? They're going to sell some of your small players, or they're just going to go, oh, actually, that player's worth 30 million. We're just going to sell him, and that's your best player gone out the door. I think, speaking of network saves, on our FMT network save, I'm £150 million in debt with Wolves, and we're going to carry that save over. So I might be in a bit of trouble. I don't know if it's going to affect the transfer budget side of things. We'll see where we go. But yeah, it could be a difficult situation. It could lead to some great content as well. On the content side of things, you are a content machine with everything that you do at the moment. Obviously, you've got Football Manager side of things, but you also started doing a lot more of your daily vlogs. You started to bring them back, but now you're doing holiday vlogs. You're doing hotel reviews and various things like that. Is that something you're looking to diversify a little bit more, or just continue on now?
Yeah, I mean, vlogging has always been a part of the thing for me. I started my FM channel in 2015 and started the vlog channel in 2016. So they've kind of gone hand in hand from the start. I had those few years where I was doing the daily vlog. I think I did the daily vlog for 2.5 years. Started on the 1st of January 2017, killed it midway through 2019 because it's quite hard making a video every single day on top of the existing video I'm making every single day on the Football Manager stuff. And then I kind of spent a few years just slowly killing that channel through different reinventions. The pandemic didn't help because it's quite hard to vlog when you can't leave the house for a year and a half. And kind of got to the point where tried to bring that channel back to life again earlier this year, and just it was so dead in the algorithm, there was just no hope for it. So officially killed that channel, called time on that channel earlier this year, relaunched from zero a new vlog channel, which is a scary thing to do when you're a full-time creator, saying yeah, this channel with 100,000 plus subscribers, that's done, I'm starting again from zero because I think that's a good idea. And to be fair, it has kind of worked so far. The videos are now getting more views than they were getting on the previous channel. We got monetized within like 2 weeks. It is now making money. It's kind of funding itself again, which is a nice situation to be in. We've had a couple of videos go sort of semi-viral. So I enjoy that side of things. I think if I were to just make Football Manager content and that be that, I would go insane. I need that little bit of variety, and it's the content creator's curse. You try and monetize everything. Oh, you got a slight interest in something, monetize that. So I enjoy traveling. Our kids moved out over the course of the last couple of years. All 3 kids have moved out, moved on, become adults. I've got a nearly 22-year-old daughter. It's ridiculous. But we are now empty nesters. So we're able to travel a lot more anyway. It was always something we planned to do, and it just makes sense to be able to call them business expenses. Which, you know, there's a good reason to blog it. No, I just really enjoy making that kind of content. My biggest worry as a Football Manager creator for years has been just, and I've learned this lesson this year more than any other year, even though it's something that's always been at the back of my mind, it's just how reliant you are on the popularity and the general opinion of that year's game really dictates how well the content does. If people are down on the game, then they will be down on the content. It didn't really hurt me in the early part of the year. Non-League to Legend actually performed better than it usually does because Ben wasn't really uploading. So me and Jack split his viewers in half and both did really well in the first half of the year. But once that ended and I went into home, and there's a little bit of people weren't that into that. But the views just in general on my YouTube channel for the last 3 or 4 months have been the lowest they've been since I've been full time. And that is scary, knowing just how at the whim of what Sports Interactive do I am. If they put out an absolute turd of a game, then I might not be able to pay my bills. So I'd like to have, and I definitely don't want to have to go and get a real job again. That sounds terrifying. So having a little bit of diversity, it's why I've pushed quite hard towards Twitch over the last year and a half, even though I've never really considered myself a streamer. I've always been a YouTuber who streams a bit. I think I'm now more evenly balanced between the two. I've got the vlog there for a little bit of diversity, and yeah, it's something you'll see me do more and more over the coming years. My dream scenario, and I've talked about this on stream quite a lot, I would get to the point where I only have to make Football Manager content during the football season. I'd like to get to May and be like, right, I'll see you all again when the new game comes out in October. I'm off to drive across America in a Winnebago, or whatever I might be doing. Financially, can't do that at the moment. Need to keep the wolves from the door throughout the summer as well. But I would love to get to the point where Football Manager is just a relatively small part of what is an overall portfolio of projects and things that I've got going on.
How difficult, Kev, is it to sort of, because ultimately you're doing it as a job, but you started this because you love the game, and I'm sure that's still the case. But with it being your job, are there points where you sort of struggle a little bit to sort of motivate yourself? I'm going to enjoy it, because with content, it's very obvious if the content creator is not enjoying what they're putting out, because especially someone like yourself, who, like, I really enjoyed watching your Football Manager videos alongside the vlog channel, because I felt like I got to know you quite well, even though obviously never met, but like over the internet, because you're putting yourself out there as well as the game I loved. So it's brilliant. It was the best of both worlds. But do you find yourself at times going, oh, I've got to play I've got to earn my money, I've got to pay the bills, we've got to do that, I've got to play Football Manager?
Not really. And I think this is one of those examples of my autism being my superpower. It's why I've been able to be so consistent over the years, because Football Manager is one of my little safe places. It's one of my little comfort things. It's my special interest. I've played Football Manager pretty much every day for pushing 30 years at this point. And I just can't imagine not doing that. So it's quite nice to take this thing that I was doing an obsessive amount anyway and being able to turn that into a job, because there have certainly been points in my life where almost the reverse situation has been the actual case, where I've had a real job and Football Manager has got in the way and affected performance and caused problems, because I had a couple of years where I was like I was a business development manager for a bank. So basically a traveling salesman, got to work from home before it was cool, and very quickly realized that I could hit all my targets by only actually leaving the house about 3 days a month. So I just did that and spent the rest of the time sat at home playing Football Manager. Luckily, no one ever figured out what was going on. I don't know how, when they saw the mileage on the company car, I don't know how they didn't realize that I was never going out. But I guess it was back in the mid 2000s when everything, the idea of there being any kind of financial crash was impossible to conceive. And as long as you were hitting your targets, everyone was happy. So I mean, there was times as a teacher when Football Manager would be running on my laptop. So it is an obsessive interest that I've kind of been able. It would adversely affect parts of my life, the amount of time that I would spend playing it. So the fact I've been able to spin that around into a positive, because it is now the thing that I do to pay the bills, is it's making lemonade out of lemons. Because there's plenty of exams I should have been studying for, or dissertations I should have been writing, or marriages I shouldn't have been neglecting. Football Manager is very much responsible for.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting that there's a couple of like crossovers here. Obviously, Callum to my side. I'm going to say to side because I don't know which way to point.
No,
I
no
never
idea.
get the pointing right, so I'm not going to bother. It's that way. I know that, but it's over there anyway. But Callum's obviously a teacher himself, and then he's also got a child on the way as well. So he's in the early Lollujo phases, I guess, of content
Yeah,
creation.
the beard isn't quite big enough yet.
No,
but he's
I mean,
getting
It
there.
will.
He's got
Give
the
me
glasses
time.
as
Give me
well.
time.
Yeah.
Kev.
You need to start pushing the hair up at the front though.
Okay, right, there we go. Right.
Yeah, there you
Big
go.
forehead.
Getting there.
Any advice for like emerging content creators like Callum and I guess myself? Or
Yeah, I mean it's difficult. I do struggle giving this kind of advice because what I did is stupid and unsustainable, and unless you've got a brain like mine, probably not something people can. It makes me sound like such a wang. It's not something normal people could aspire to. You have to be special like me. But you kind of do have to be a little bit broken brained like me, because I actually did I've just done I could go on because I've just done a 45-minute talk at a school about this to a bunch of sixth formers, kind of explaining how I got to where I am. And as part of that, I had to they wanted to know the amount of hours I put in to get where I am. And I kind of look back on it now. I do have a bit more work-life balance now. It's why the vlog stuff comes in, to try and give me a bit more work-life balance. That's something I can do with Anna, and it's still work. It's good. But I was working as a teacher. I would then get home and I would have a daily vlog to film and edit and release. I would have that day's Football Manager, because I've done daily Football Manager videos since my first one back in 2015. So I'd have a Football Manager video to record. I'd have the in-betweeny bits to play to get through to the next day. I'd stream. There was a point while I was still a teacher where I'd gone up to 2 Football Manager videos a day. So I'd have 2 series on the run at the same time, plus the Twitch save, plus the vlog. I was sleeping for, bearing in mind, sleep apnea as well. I was in bed for a couple of hours a night. So I was probably, but this is why the 50 hours thing was no issue. I was probably getting maybe 30 or 40 minutes of sleep a night, and did it for years. And I don't know how I didn't kill myself doing it. Just, I look back and I would never recommend to anybody to do what I did, because it seems impossible. I don't understand how I fit it all in. So don't do that. Maybe pick one area to focus on. And I mean, the basics are the basics. So you need to make sure that each piece of content you produce is better than the one before. Don't worry about how many people are watching in the early days. I mean, I very much come at this from a YouTube perspective because I was a YouTuber who became a streamer. So I know a lot of the cool kids now like to do the streaming and then maybe dabble in YouTube a little bit here and there. Personally, I find it confusing that I don't see that there's a way to go from nothing to full-time streamer without there being something. I don't think that's a thing you can do, because I think you need to have at the top end of the funnel the streamer. The stream is the place where your hardcore come and hang out with you and get to know you, because they like all your other stuff, but they have to learn who you are and discover they like you from the other stuff to get into the stream. So the stream very much is, for me, it's the community building bit for the hardcore who want to hang out with me for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So I know there are people who've built Twitch channels up from nothing, and I don't know how they did it. That's not my thing. But certainly for YouTube, start making videos. Keep making videos. Don't stop making videos. Make sure each video is better than the one before. Don't worry too much about the gear you've got. I started my YouTube channel on what at the time was like a 7 or 8 year old MacBook Air, stood on a cardboard box in my garage with no camera and a £20 Logitech headset microphone as my microphone. And because my computer couldn't really handle recording the screen whilst doing the game, a lot of it was just screenshots in PowerPoint that I would put in. And that was how my first videos were. And obviously from there as my starting point, and it doesn't matter that it was that rubbish because no one's watching at the start. And that's what you have to remember. At the start, no one's watching. watching, but I made sure that every day the videos got a little bit better than the one before. And I would always try and be working on a thing, whether it was getting better at talking, whether it was getting better at editing. There was a whole season of Non-League to Legend one year where I'd got a camera and a green screen, but didn't know how to use it yet. So it was a little rectangular box with me sat in, you could see the green screen. The green screen was behind me. I didn't know how to chroma key yet, but it was fine because adding in the face cam was a step of progress.
Yeah.
And then when I eventually learned how to chroma key it out, that's another step of progress. So it's just about constantly trying to improve and make sure each video you release is better than the one before. And if you can honestly say that each one you release is better than the one before, eventually you'll get to the point where you're not awful. And hopefully at that point, people have started watching. And if you then get all those ingredients in the right place and get a massive dose of luck and lucky timing as well, then you might make it. It sounds very gatekeepery and very don't do what I did because get off my lawn, old man madness. But it genuinely, so much of it is luck, so much of it is timing. I was very lucky that I started in 2015 when nobody was really doing it. The biggest channels at the time, I think Jack was the biggest channel at the time and maybe had 5,000 subs when I started.
Yeah.
So it was a much easier landscape to get into. I think if I were to try and get into it now, I don't think I would make it. I don't think I have the natural skill and creativity. I look at the stuff that the likes of Tom are doing now, and there is no way I could do what he does. His videos are, I don't even know how he does them. They're incredible. Luckily, I don't have to do that because I've already built my brand on being the random old man, and it's fine. But yeah, I think it is getting harder and harder to get into every year. But just like it's always been, the key is find the niche, find the thing that you're better at than anybody else, or find the thing that nobody else is doing that you think there might be an audience for. And everyone who's gone big in the last 3 or 4 years has done it that way. Zealand came in with the tutorials and exploded because no one else was doing the tutorials. And he's now been able to expand that out into half the time. He's not even making FM videos anymore because he's continuing to expand out. But he used those tutorials to establish himself on YouTube, use that to grow a massive Twitch, and is now a gazillionaire. Because he found the thing that no one else was doing, that he could do better than everyone else. He constantly invested back into his business. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of his accounting procedures, but the way I can tell, he must be pouring a huge percentage of what he earns every month back into making his content better, by expanding his team, by getting better gear. And he now is at a point where his type of content is completely unassailable by anybody else. Nobody could come along now and do what he does better than him because you can't afford to do it. You can't afford the team. You can't afford the gear. There's no way to compete with Zealand on Zealand's terms. You have to find your own way. And you've got Luke doing it with his rebuilds. You've got Tom doing it with his experiments. You've got the crew doing it with his fantastically edited together, like season-long compilations. And they've all found their own little areas that they can do better than everybody else, and that nobody else was doing before they started doing them. Rebuilding Barcelona, Luke. But nobody else was doing it before they came along, and they're now getting to the point where they're starting to expand their teams, get better gear, have people working with them. And now you look at the rebuild. We'll use rebuilds as the example. No newcomer can come in and do a rebuild better than Luke can now, because Luke has an editor. Luke has a thumbnail guy. Luke has his dad, who everyone likes.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Nobody can compete with that. Nobody can compete with Tom for experiments because he does them better than everybody else. And you can't afford to compete with him. Even if you're more talented than Tom at making experiments, unless you've got a huge amount of financial backing and you're willing to risk a lot, even then you don't have his established audience. So the next guy who comes along and makes it big isn't going to be able to come along and do let's plays or do experiments or do rebuilds. They need to find out what the next thing is. It seems like the next thing might be these multiple seasons in one video thing that is going to absolutely destroy let's plays and lead to me becoming a full-time vlogger. But even with them, Ben's doing them now, Tom's doing them now, Luke's doing them now. So the big guys are hoovering up the new stuff as soon as it starts to emerge, like, right, I can do that. I'll have that. So yeah, for someone new to make it now, they're going to have an incredible idea and do something that is uniquely them, that only they can do, that one of the big guys can't just see the idea and take it and do it just as well, because, or even not quite as well. Like if I see, and believe me, I'm on the lookout. If I see this exciting new idea and there's someone who's doing incredible videos and getting a couple of hundred views, you can be sure I'm stealing that and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to get 50,000 views. And sorry, you might be doing it better than me, but I've got the audience. It's mine now. And yeah, so it's that, and that's where the luck and the timing comes in, because you have to find the thing that not only is unique, not only is nobody doing, but that nobody can replicate. And yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to get into now.
It's very reassuring. Thanks.
I know, that's what I mean. It comes across so gatekeepery. But the positive to take out of it, I guess, is try things, experiment, do things your way. Don't try and do what everyone else is doing, because even if you do it better than them, they've got the established audience. So that probably isn't enough. It's not enough to be better than everybody else. You have to be different, and you have to find that thing that people are into. And there are things out there. I mean, Football Manager have kind of killed it now with the Netflix thing, but I've been saying for years, FM Mobile is just, it's ripe for someone to come in and become the FM Mobile guy. Because every year I do a first look at FM Mobile video that gets like 300,000 views. There's a huge audience for it. No one's doing it because it plays like a turd, so no one wants to do that as their day-to-day thing, but it's there. Football Manager on console is now their biggest, it's the biggest player base, is the console base. So perhaps someone needs to be the console guy. Perhaps someone needs to focus in on doing tutorials for console, or doing, I don't know, multiplayer. I know we've done a lot of it on Twitch with stuff like the playoffs, the showdown, that kind of thing. But no one's really doing PvP stuff well on YouTube.
Yeah.
So maybe there needs to be someone who comes along and does that. But if I knew what the next thing is, you could be damn sure I wouldn't be telling you about it, because I'd be getting it ready for FM24. And if I see it between now and then, I'm stealing it.
I think if to put a positive spin on what has ultimately been me going, I may as well just quit now. Is talking sort of about the FM. The word community is used a lot, but the group of people who are now playing FM. I was not at the last Insomnia was your world record, but I was at the one before, and I remember you coming out and saying, "This is amazing. This is just a gaming convention, but look how many people are here who are FM content creators." And the last SI meet in the summer had 50 odd people there. This is an expanding base. Now, whether it's expanding of people who are going to do it full time as their job, I don't know. But what I can certainly say is, I mean, me as a teacher who's about to become a dad imminently, my wife's just gone on maternity leave. It could be right now. I better just keep one earphone one side. You know, I'm enjoying making content. Like I enjoy it. I feel like I'm all right at it. Am I going to earn a living out of it? Probably not. You know, like that's the reality. But I do enjoy creating content. But there's loads of people who are the same, and there's loads of people who are better than me. There's loads of people that are worse than me. There's loads of people that are exactly the same, and that's fine. Like, you know, it's fine. But I think, as you say, we're not all looking to become the next Lollujo or Dr. Benji Zealand. Some people just enjoy the content creation side of things, and I always saw it, because I agree with you that I think it's unattainable. I think the way you did it initially, I'd love to be able to do that alongside my teaching job. I'd lose my teaching job. I wouldn't be. It just wouldn't be a thing. There's no way I could do it alongside teaching a load of 6-year-olds each day, because I teach primary school, and that's hard going. But you know, I think what my big thing would be, I only do Twitch. So, and I know there's a lot of people, like you say, who started off on Twitch and they're solely on Twitch. I think the only way I'd have any chance whatsoever is to invest as much time into Twitch as I do into YouTube, maybe even more into YouTube, and sort of build a base there. Because I think just on being on Twitch alone, you're only found when you're live. If you're only live 2-3 times a week for 2 hours, it's very unlikely, especially if you're in peak times, that you're going to be found. Whereas if you've got a YouTube video out there, someone could find that at 3 in the morning on a Sunday night and go, "Oh, I want to see this person play play this save with Luton, and then they click on them and suddenly, oh yeah, they're quite good and they're in. So it's very different platforms, but I do agree in the sense of it's incredibly difficult, isn't it? It's incredibly difficult.
I think the bit that I've missed out of my rant that I probably should have included is that I think the idea of becoming the next me or Zealand or Ben or whoever else you want to list, that is not a thing that is possible anymore, because Lollujo is not me now. Lollujo is a company that employs multiple people. Zealand is a company that employs multiple people. So the idea of one person taking on a company that's got a team, no, that obviously isn't going to happen. But I would say there are probably more people now working full-time or part-time within Football Manager content creation than ever before. And that number is going to continue to grow, but it will grow slightly differently. So it'll be the big guys hiring their editors, hiring their thumbnail guys, my YouTube partner manager is forever telling me I need to hire a social media manager because I'm horrible at it. And I need to have someone doing that for me. So that's going to be my next hire. I need a social media manager. And these are all like paid full-time positions and their routes into the industry. And then you can start. I mean, we're still very early days of content creation, not just Football Manager, content creation in general.
Yeah.
We're still so early on in that, and there's some very big brands that are established now that from an outside looking in, you feel like the brand is the person, but actually there's such a huge team of people behind the brand. If something happened to that person, or if that person gets old and wants to retire, there's gonna start being these brands that start to have continuity planning and keep the brand going beyond the original creator. So if someone were to come into Lollujo, the business, now, I might decide to retire in 10 years. That doesn't mean daily Lollujo videos stop necessarily. It just might mean there's a different face in front of the camera, but it's the same channel, the same kind of content, and there's roots in that way. And then, of course, you have the opportunity to break out from there. Someone like, I'll use Editor Chris as an example because he's been working with me for a couple of years now. If he decided to stream now, he would get tens of times the number of viewers he used to get when he was streaming as Kanga FM 3 years ago, because people know who he is now. He's a character in my videos. He's a character in my streams. If he decided he wanted to break out on his own, he would stand a much better chance now than on his own, because he's got that history of working with me. People know who he is, and he can kind of spin that off from there. So just because the idea of doing it as like an indie creator is harder now, it doesn't mean that working in content creation is harder to get into. If anything, it's probably faster and easier to get into content creation now, because if you're a good thumbnail guy, I mean, we're all fighting over the same 2 or 3 guys at the moment. So if someone comes along who's good at thumbnails, you're going to get a job very quickly, and quite quickly get to the point where that is your job. That would be your full-time job. If you're a good editor, there are people out there crying out for good editors. I mean, my workflow now, Chris isn't enough. I need another Chris, because he basically runs my second channel. He runs Lollujo 2. He does all of that is his channel, basically. Yep. That's all him. I don't even decide what gets released on it anymore. He has the streams as his things to work with, and he decides what goes into the videos and what videos he's going to make, how often he's going to make them. That is entirely his channel. So he's effectively got a channel with like 30,000 subscribers now. But I've lost track of. Oh no, yeah, I need a second one, because I'm still editing the videos on the main channel. I'm still editing the vlogs. I would love to get to the point where, and I don't think I'm going to be there for FM24, but I'm going to try and get there for FM25, where FM25, when it releases, I want to just go live on Twitch, like the FIFA guys do.
Yep.
I want to go live on Twitch, and I want to be live for 10 or 12 hours. And during that 10 or 12 hours that I'm live, I want 4 videos being released across various YouTube channels that I've basically had no involvement in, other than being the performing monkey in front of the camera. That's where I want to get to, because And to get there, I'm going to need at least one more editor, maybe two. I'm going to need Luke to give up my thumbnail guy and let me have him full time. I'm going to need someone who understands like titles and SEO and the social. I'm going to need that social media manager. So my team at the moment is me and 2 people. For me to get where I want to be, I need at least probably 5 people. And from there, you push it on even further, and it's just gonna keep growing. And
I was going to say, by FM25, you'll have an end credits to every video that you do, like people that do stuff. And
yeah, I mean,
it's
that's
something that's
where it's heading, though.
Yeah, it's something that like me and Tony always said when we did the playoffs. We're making television, you're making stuff that entertain people, and it almost starts to work in that way. I obviously work in the broadcast industry as part of my job, and it's nice to see that it's developing this way. And it's like you mentioned with the FM creators, you've started doing it with your Twitch streams as well, where you go, right, I'm not going to respond to anybody in the chat because I'm recording a video. I mean, that it's an ideal way of doing stuff. And I've noticed people, FIFA streamers, a couple of, I think Nick 28T was the one that I highlighted beforehand. He starts his stream, he goes through everything, does a little bit of pre-stream amble. He gets 6 p.m, he does all the 6 p.m. content video, and he does his YouTube thing. And then he finishes, and he live gives his notes to his editor while he's streaming. He says, "Oh, I need to remove this." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's fantastic way of doing
Chris
stuff.
Is half editor, half chief moderator.
Yeah.
He's there throughout the stream.
Exactly.
He's working in the background as well. It's great.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely revolutionized that work-life balance thing I was talking about before, because
efficiency.
Before I would spend my day making my videos and then my evening streaming, and I didn't have much in the way of free time. Now my Football Manager content creation at this time of year, it'll be different during the launch of the new game, but at this time of the year, I effectively start work at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening when I start streaming, and I'm done by like 11 o'clock. It's maybe an hour after the stream where I'm doing a few intros, editing a few bits together, and saying what thumbnails I want, that kind of thing. But I've got my days free to do the vlog stuff now, which I am absolutely stacking up. I've got content filmed for the vlog to get me through till like November at the moment, and I need to get through to the end of the year before the beta drops, because once the beta drops, Tom, I'm coming for you, because those daytimes are when I'm going to be recording the videos that are going to take that boy down. I'm going to reclaim what's mine, and you are going to see so much more non-Let's Play content from me in FM24, because I've now finally got the time to do it. What I need to do is see how he's cheating, because I need to work out how he can do like 7 or 8 season video in 3 days. Presumably he's just holidaying it or using a quick result button, or I need to work out what he's doing to make it seem legit, but obviously he's faking it somewhere in there. And I need to work out what that is. And once I've worked that out, I mean, for all I know, he's got someone sat there playing it for him in the background, and he's just the front man. I've considered that in the past. I've considered giving scenarios to people to say, right, I want you to play out this save. I want you to take clips of the screen if any of these things happen. This is the story we're looking to get from it. Package it all back to me, and then I just get it back as a bunch of clips and a save file, and turn that into a video over the course of a couple of hours. Then hand it off to Chris or new Chris or whichever Chris is doing the editing side of things. And I'm there for the initial idea conception. I'm there to do my to-camera bits, but the 30 hours of work that goes into it, either side of it, is being done somewhere that I don't need to know about, and it just kind of appears back on the channel when it's done. And yeah, there's so much stuff that, oh God, I wish I had Zealand money. Oh, can you imagine?
I was just going to say, am I going to have to like travel across from Nottingham to Newark or something like that to stop you and Tom going to war in in between you both from Grantham and Lincoln and
Tom
stuff like that?
Tom is a creature, he's my own creation effectively, because he sent me a message years ago. I should find it. It's the first DM Tom ever sent me, thanking me for doing my I did a challenge thing as part of one of my Christmas videos a couple of years ago, basically challenging. I wanted 20 Football Manager content creators to have more than 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and challenge people watching to start. And Tom was one of the people who started off the back of that.
Fantastic.
And that's when amazing. He got to 10,000 subs, he sent like a thank you saying, you know, he was nice. He's not nice anymore, but he was nice. Similar to how the fact I exist is all Jack's fault, because he gave me a shout out on his short-lived manager of the month series that he did in like 2015. He only did 3 of them, because I think on the second one he mentioned me and everything got ruined. But yeah, that got me like 3,000 subs in one day. So the fact I exist is Jack's fault. The fact Ben exists is Jack's fault. But the fact Tom exists is my fault. And yeah, I don't know who's responsible for Luke, but they've got a lot to answer for.
So with a few quick subjects. I think PvP you mentioned. Obviously, Showdown you are Kebby 7 times. I think your last delve into PvP was the playoffs in FM22. So you've not done any FM23. Is it going to be on the cards for FM24, or is it all dependent on if?
I'd like to think so. I mean, it's really in Ben's court if the Showdown comes back. I mean, as much fun as the playoffs was, it's inconvenient timings for me and doesn't really fit into my lifestyle. So I can't really do the playoffs, because every month I get the invite and it's like, yeah, this is the reason I can't do it this month. And there's always a reason.
We'll make a note and get your free times, and we'll go the other way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. if you could schedule the whole thing around when I'm free, I would absolutely do it.
We'll give you free sponsorship. Lollujo presents the FM playoffs or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll record it on. I mean, basically during the day. The weekend is the only time I can fit it in, which doesn't really go well for Twitch views. Yeah, we'll do it while the football's on the telly. That's the best time to do it, but that's when I'm free. But yeah, if the Showdown were to come back, I would absolutely want to be a part of it. I think a lot of that depends on between Ben and Matt being able to get that up and running, and because Matt is so busy building computers for me, and I mean, he's done the same. I mean, he's basically spent most of his last month in either my house or Jack's house or at Insomnia doing various computer building things for people who are upset and crying about it.
He's also done Ben's early in the year. He just needs to get that ticket to New York for Zealand, and I think he's got the 4 completed then. So.
Exactly. He needs to stop being so helpful and be a bit more selfish and just be like, well, this time I'm spending doing all this, we could have done a Showdown. But yeah, I'd love to be Kevy 8 times, but yeah, it's the stars have to align properly for it to all work out. And I think a lot of another problem is, and again, I don't know the thought process from Ben's side on this, but a lot of the people who were regulars on the Showdown now are not even streaming FM anymore. The likes of Jack and Tom and Luke, none of them are streaming FM. So if it comes back, do you do it with effectively a whole new cast of people, with just like me and Zealand and a bunch of strangers, or do you break the rules and bring back these people who aren't streaming anymore, even though that was always the rule? That's why Jack wasn't in like the first year, because he wasn't streaming. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if there's enough people who were involved in it before that are ready to step back in and be involved again for it to come back without it just stealing everyone who's involved in the playoffs. and killing the playoffs, because it just, we're having all of you, over you come. By the way, you're now exclusive to the Showdown.
I've not signed anything. I don't know what you're on about. Right. It's interesting, and I hope there's. I think there's divergence of various issues that we've had with PvP. I think it can iron out some of those issues, but it's not a focus for SI, I don't think, as well. It's not something they can get heavily involved with because of licensing and various other things as well. I can understand on there. Also mentioned your autism diagnosis, which has happened quite late in your life. Rich, who sadly not with us today, he's also had an autism diagnosis quite late in life as well. How's that affected you? Has that brought more clarity to how the brain works, etc.? Is that, I think that's almost what you've said as well previously.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, it's one of those things where I'd kind of self-diagnosed myself years ago and always assumed that I was, and kind of built the lifestyle that helped me the most long before I got the diagnosis. So I've kind of done it the opposite way around to what a lot of people do it. So I am definitely one of those autistic people who always struggled having a proper job, always struggle. I am very I have quite strong demand avoidance. So I don't like having a boss. I don't like following instructions. I don't like following rules. I find it very challenging. So having to be in the same place at the same time every day, doing the same things and having to do them the way you're told to do them, even though you know there's a better way to do them, stuff like that. It's difficult to describe. It would be physically painful. I find it very difficult to do anything that I've decided is a pointless task. It's one of the reasons why I have to have an accountant, because I can't do my own bookkeeping because I just find it so pointless, because I already know that I've done it right. So then going through and formalizing it into a different format, although I accept it needs to be done, my brain doesn't. And it's like, no, you don't need to do this. It's already done. You're already right. And it is just banging into a brick wall. And I feel the tension throughout my body, and I just want to like wave my arms around, and my head is ready to explode. It's horrible. It is horrible forcing myself into do things that I don't want to do. But obviously it's a long time now since I've had a real job. I've been doing this full time for 7 years now. Is that right? That might be right. And I basically set my own schedule. I work out of my own environment that is perfectly set up for me. It looks like absolute chaos to anybody else, but it's just got all of my things around me, my football things, my wrestling things, my wonderful collection of fugglers that I have around the room, my wrestling figures. I've got an air conditioner on one side of me and a fan on the other because I don't like to be too warm. Everything is set up exactly how I want it. I work when I want. I work on what I want when I want. I do it in my own little place, and I don't have to answer to anybody. And just having those things set up in my life means that on a day-to-day basis, it's all pretty easy to handle. I avoid situations that I know are problematic. Like I wouldn't wander around it's weird because I love somewhere like Insomnia, but I wouldn't wander around a shopping center on a Saturday afternoon. I love going to Comic-Con, but I would never go there on Saturday when it's really, really busy.
Yeah.
I go Friday afternoon, I go Sunday afternoon. I avoid the really, really busy times. So I know the kind of things that cause me problems, and I avoid them. And I realize I'm very, very lucky to be in a position to be able to do that, because most people in my situation have to have all that other stuff that they still have to do because they need to be able to live, they need to be able to put food on the table, and it can be incredibly challenging. I spoke before about how I would sit around playing Football Manager when I was supposed to be working, and I was lucky to be in the right jobs at the right time where it didn't get me fired, and I actually ended up doing quite well, and I've managed to become reasonably successful, more by luck or judgment in most areas of my life. I just have this frustrating habit of just kind of falling on my feet and things kind of working out for me. And I realize I'm very, very lucky. But yeah, it's getting back to the question. It certainly explained a lot about some of the past relationships I've had. It explains why I don't know a single person I went to school with anymore. I don't really have much in the way of friends. Certainly not friends the way I understand friends to work. Like there is nobody aside from Anna who I would talk about feelings with, for example. So and that's always been the case with me. I've never really had friends. I have people I get on with. I have associates. I have colleagues, but I don't really have friends. And I've spoke before about the fact that my marriage didn't work out because it didn't work out. I've lucked out massively with Anna because I met her and she already had an 8-year-old autistic son, so she was already used to making huge accommodations for an autistic person in her life. And it just so happened that a lot of the accommodations she was already making for him, I slotted into very nicely. And that kind of worked out. So she understands and doesn't get upset if like EAFC came out on Friday. I've spent most of my time since we got back from Great Yarmouth on Friday sat in my office playing it, and she understands that I'm going to do that because for a few days I'm going to be really obsessive about it. I'm going to spend too much money on packs, and then I'm going to drop it like a stone when I lose interest in it again, because that's what I do. And she's seen that cycle go through multiple times over the time that she's known me. Whereas someone who didn't really understand my brain would maybe be quite put out that I've spent the whole weekend in my office playing a football game and not spent any time with them. But she knows we'll spend a lot of time together next week at Disneyland. And it all kind of balances out. So yeah, I've been very lucky that I've not had to have difficult conversations with work about making accommodations for me. I don't feel like, I mean, I imagine I probably would qualify for it, but I haven't felt the need to apply for things like PIP or anything like that and go through that process, because financially I'm fine. I don't need the extra support or anything like that. So yeah, I've not had to experience any of the downsides. And I don't know, I've got the superpower flavor of autism, I guess, that allows me to do stuff like make 3,000 YouTube videos over the course of however many years, upload every day without fail, because that's what I do. I mean, there was the Out of Context Football Manager Twitter account put a thing out over the weekend asking who your favorite content creator is. And the amount of people, when they mentioned me, would also use the word consistency, because I am the guy who, is going to put a video out every day. Every day you're going to get a video from me without fail, and it doesn't matter what else is going on. I mean, this month I'm literally, as we're recording this, I'm going to watch the North London derby afterwards, and I'm going to go live on Twitch because I need to record all of next week's videos. I'm in Disneyland, I've got nothing ready. I'm going to stream for like 8 hours today. I'm going to record 5 videos and they're going to come out. Normal people would be like, I'm going to miss a few days, I'm on holiday.
Yeah.
That would physically hurt me to do that. And I know it's fine. I know it would be okay. I know the audience aren't going anywhere, but at the same time, it's more for my benefit than theirs that I don't want to miss a day, because the anxiety that I'll feel through not having that 4 o'clock video drop and having the routine of going into checking the comments, and I'd just rather do it. I'd rather get it done and just be in my comfort zone of knowing there's a video coming out that day.
I find it fascinating. I genuinely do. I find it fascinating. I find the mind fascinating. I find the fact that you've used the word lucky so many times there, but you've made your own luck, Kev. Like through the way you built yourself, most people wouldn't do that. Most people would have given up at the very early stages.
That's part of the luck, though, because the flavor of autism that I've got, obviously autism is a spectrum, it presents differently in every person, but the version that I've got means that giving up was never an option. It never even crossed my mind. The thought of it's why I was able to do a 50-hour world record stream. The idea of giving up, if I set my mind to do something, I'm going to do that thing, even if it's at the detriment to my own health or safety or well-being or financial or relationship or whatever it might be. If I've decided I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So yeah, I guess for a neurotypical brain, maybe that is determination. Maybe that is a positive character trait. For me, it's just I'm lucky that I've decided I'm going to do the right things, because I might have decided that I really want to try that heroin. That sounds really nice. I'm lucky that the thing that I decided I wanted to do has been quite good.
I did not see it going there, Kev.
There you go. There's a clip for this week.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm also lucky that I have that never give up trait, because I could just as easily have the as soon as anything gets hard, I crumble trait. So a lot of it is luck. It's just taking the hand that you're dealt and making the best of it. And it took me, I mean, how old am I now? I was like 33, 34 when I started YouTube. So I spent a long time kind of floundering around, never holding down a job for more than a couple of years. Like I say, failed marriage, failed relationships, loads of debt. You know, I even now I still don't own a house because of the financial mess I got myself into in my 20s. I made a lot of mistakes and had a lot of things go very wrong. And then luckily I fell into the thing that fitted my brain. And that is, no matter what it might look like to anyone else looking in, it really was luck to be in the right place at the right time. Because if I'd have decided to do it 5 years earlier, it didn't exist. 5 years later, I don't get into it. So there's so much of it that's luck.
Yeah, it may be luck, but it's fantastic the work that you've done, and I think to bring awareness as well, really more to anything else. I think particularly on some of your channels as well, the stuff with Andy that you covered off, and then obviously on your own diagnosis as well. It is inspirational. It does get the praise it deserves from a lot of people. I know Rich is a big fan just because of that, because he's got similar neurodivergence. It's amazing the work you've done, and I think on behalf of everyone, thank you. And like you do have some friends out there. I guess we might be associates or colleagues, but you've always got friends at the FMT pod. As part of the FMT pod, we do play a game, and we're getting close to that North London derby. So we're going to do one round of it. So it's one round of the Football Game Co. I will quickly. So yes, we've got one round. It's very simple. You'll start with you, Kev. It is, if it's not going to focus on, there you go. Teams Sam Allardyce has managed.
Gordon Bennett.
Yeah.
Well, I've just got to list these to you.
No, you just need to do one, and then it'll go back to Callum and back and forth until you get one wrong.
I'll start with Bolton then.
Bolton. Correct.
That was going to be my answer as well. Everton.
Correct.
England.
Sunderland.
Okay. Now then. West Ham?
He did Newcastle as well, didn't he?
I am for some reason, and I think he played for them. I don't know if he Blackpool.
Yes.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh no! I was hoping you weren't going to get another one.
102 games at Blackpool.
I'm just thinking of like lower level Premier League clubs, and we're running out of them already. West Brom? Did he manage West Brom?
He did.
Oh, that's it.
First team he was relegated with.
Teams.
Oh, I've got another one.
There's 4 more there.
4 more?
5 more, actually. There's 5 more.
He's managed so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, this might be. I might be done. Blackburn.
Oh, he did. I've got another one because he managed them last season for like 2 games, didn't he? He managed Leeds.
He did.
And sent them down as well.
Wigan.
Oh, Lancashire doesn't come good for you this time.
Yeah,
I'm just picking northern clubs.
Exactly. Yeah,
Pubs in the north.
I had no
just
more
around
either.
that way. Yeah, Crystal Palace you could have had, Sunderland, Notts County where he went to after Blackpool before Bolton, and you could have had Preston North End. But yeah,
The only one of them that I knew was Notts County. I should have had that one.
Yeah.
There's, no chance.
But there we are.
no
Callum gets a win on there, and that kind of brings us into our day. First things first, we've got the FM Community Charity Stream is running this week. Keep an eye out on their Twitter. They're running it for Stroke UK, so raising amazing money that's currently running now. I'm doing a stint this evening. I only found out about it about 3 hours ago, so I need to get ready for that. And I think Rich is on later in the week, and Callum, you're on Saturday?
Saturday morning, yeah.
Fantastic.
Saturday morning.
Right, we'll hand it over to you, Kev. Anywhere to shout out? Anyone you want to shout out or anything on that to end the stream. End the
Just-
stream podcast.
If you want to find out more about Kev, just type Lollujo into anything that has access to the internet, and you'll probably find me that way.
Just reminded me, right? Jebaroo. It came from I had long hair and a beard at university, so people called me Jesus. I had my hair cut, so they called me Judas. Then it developed into Jeebus. Then that somehow went into Jeb, and then somebody went Jebaroo, and then that ended up being my Xbox gamer tag, and that's where I am. Kev, where did Lollujo come from?
It's much less interesting that it does relate to an Xbox gamer tag though, and it was literally when Xbox Live first became a thing, and you could pre-register your username before you could actually have it. I was just sat there on that screen typing in different combinations of syllables because I wanted a username that didn't have like underscores, numbers, stuff like that in it. And it was just random. It was probably like the 30th random combination of syllables that I typed in, and it stuck.
And now it's
not a very. I tell you what, they're getting back to their recommendations for someone new to content creation. I would recommend picking a name that people can both say and spell. Don't call yourself something stupid like Lollujo, because no one's going to be able to say it. No one's going to be able to spell it. It's nice once you get big and you've got the brand recognition. But when you're on your way up, goodness me, word of mouth is non-existent. The amount of versions of it I've seen. Oh my word.
Right, thank you, Lollujo. Right, anyway, Callum, where can we find you this week?
You can find me over on Callum. Hopefully, that, as I say, I'm not joking when I say my wife could have a baby at any point. So if I'm not on FMT for the next few weeks, that'll be why. But yeah, if not, I'll be streaming Slough over on Monday, Thursday, and hopefully, on the weekend I'll be the charity stream, of course, as we go nearer and nearer to FM24, which is very exciting. How about you, Jeb? What's your week got?
You can find me on twitch.tv Jebaroo. Hopefully doing the network save on Monday. We will see how the health is holding up of Rich and Kev respectively. And yeah, I'll be on the charity stream. Just give that a follow, give that donations.
Yeah.
Amazing cause that they're doing it for. But that's been this week's FMT. It's been a weird one hosting again. I didn't expect to be in this chair, but Kev, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Pip, everybody.